Hi, welcome to my channel, Reader Woman. My name is Judy, and let's talk books. Tonight I thought we would do another reading from PG Wodehouse's short story in a collection of Wodehouse on crime. Perfectly acceptable for March, since it's still March Mystery Madness going on. And I read the first of this short story a little bit earlier. This is, after all, the great PG Wodehouse Readathon, part 2. Just in case you forgot, we're talking about the story, The Smile That Wins. And Adrienne Mulliner, who has fallen in love with Millicent, but alas, her father wants her to marry someone else, even though they are perfect and made for each other. So this has caused poor Adrian to have a little bit of stomach upset, which caused him to go to the doctor. And the doctor told him that there was really nothing wrong with him outside of the fact that he needed to smile more. But of course, the doctor thought you shouldn't probably smile at invalids since your smile is so rusty. So we leave the doctor's office and we start reading. On Adrien's face, as he went off that afternoon to perform the duties assigned to him by his firm, there was no smile of any description. He shrank from the ordeal before him. He had been told off to guard the wedding presents at a reception in Grosvenor Square, and naturally, anything to do with weddings was like a sword through his heart. His face, as he patrolled the room where the gifts were laid out, was drawn and forbidding. Hitherto at these functions it had always been his pride that nobody could tell that he was a detective. Today a child could have recognized his trade. He looked like Sherlock Holmes. To the gay throng that surged about him he paid little attention. Usually tense and alert on occasions like this, he now found his mind wandering. He mused sadly on Millicent, and suddenly, the result, no doubt, of these gloomy meditations, although a glass of wedding champagne may have contributed its mite, there shot through him, starting at about the third button of his neat waistcoat, a pang of dyspepsia so keen that he felt the pressing necessity of doing something about it immediately. With a violent effort, he contorted his features into a smile. And as he did so, a stout, bluff man of middle age with a red face and a gray mustache, who had been hovering near one of the tables, turned and saw him. "Egad," he muttered, paling. Sir Sutton Hadley Wesping, Bart, for the red-faced man was he, had a pretty good afternoon, like all baronets who attend society wedding receptions. He had been going round the various tables since his arrival, pocketing here a fish slice, there a jeweled egg boiler, until now he had taken on about all the cargo his tonnage would warrant, and was thinking of strolling off to the pawnbrokers in the Euston Road, with whom he did most of his business. At the sight of Adrian's Smile, he froze where he stood, appalled. We have seen what the specialist thought of Adrian's Smile. Even to him, a man of clear and limpid conscience, it had seemed sardonic and sinister. We can picture, then, the effect it must have had on Sir Sutton Hadley Wesping. At all costs, he felt, he must conciliate this leering man. Swiftly removing from his pockets a diamond necklace, 5 fish slices, 10 cigarette lighters, and a couple of egg boilers, he placed them on the table and came over to Adrian with a nervous little laugh. "How are you, my dear fellow?" he said. Adrian said that he was quite well, and so indeed he was. The specialist recipe had worked like magic. He was mildly surprised at finding himself so cordially addressed by a man whom he did not remember ever having seen before, but he attributed this to the magnetic charm of his personality. "That's fine," said the baronet heartily. "That's capital. That's splendid. By the way, I fancied I saw you smile just now." Yes, said Adrian, I did smile, you see. Of course I see. Of course, my dear fellow. You detected the joke I was playing on our good hostess. And you were amused because you understood that there is no animus, no arrière-pensée behind these little practical pleasantries. Nothing but good, clean fun, at which nobody would have laughed more heartily than herself. And now, what are you doing this weekend, my dear fellow? Would you care to run down to my place in Sussex? Very kind of you, began Adrian doubtfully. He was not quite sure that he was in the mood for a strange weekend. Here's my card, then. I shall expect you on Friday. Quite a small party. Lord Brangbolton, Sir Jasper Addleton, and a few more just loafing about, you know, in a spot of bridge at night. Splendid, capital. See you then on Friday. And carelessly dropping another egg boiler on the table as he passed, Sir Sutton disappeared. Any doubts which Adrian might have entertained as to accepting the baronet's invitation had vanished as he heard the names of his fellow guests. It always interests a fiancé to meet his fiancé's father, and his fiancé's prospective fiancé. For the first time since Millicent had told him the bad news, Adrian became almost cheerful. If, he felt, this baronet had taken such a tremendous fancy to him at first sight, why, might it not happen that Lord Brangbolton would be equally drawn to him, to the extent, in fact, of overlooking his profession and welcoming him as a son-in-law? He packed on the Friday with what was, to all intents and purposes, a light heart. A fortunate chance at the very outset of his expedition increased Adrian's optimism. It made him feel that fate was fighting on his side. As he walked down the platform of Victoria Station, looking for an empty compartment in the train which was to take him to his destination, he perceived a tall, aristocratic old gentleman being assisted into a first-class carriage by a man of butlering aspect, and in the latter he recognized the servitor who had admitted him to 18A, Upper Brook Street, when he visited the house after solving the riddle of the missing Sealyham. Obviously, then, the white-haired, dignified passenger could be none other than Lord Brangbolton. And Adrian felt that if on a long train journey he failed to ingratiate himself with the old buster, he had vastly mistaken his amiability and winning fascination of manner. He leaped in accordingly as the train began to move, and the Earl, glancing up from his paper, jerked a thumb at the door. "Get out, blast you," he said, "full up." As the compartment was empty but for themselves, Adrian made no move to comply with the request. Indeed, to alight now to such an extent had the train gathered speed would have been impossible. Instead, he spoke cordially. "Lord Brangbolton, I believe." "Go to hell," said his lordship. "I fancy we are to be fellow guests at Westbing Hall this weekend." "What of it?" "I just mentioned it." "Oh," said Lord Brangbolton. "Well, since you're here, how about a little flutter?" As is customary with men of his social position, Millicent's father always traveled with a pack of cards. Being gifted by nature with considerable manual dexterity, he usually managed to do well with these on race trains. "Ever played Persian monarchs?" he asked, shuffling. "I think not," said Adrian. "Quite simple," said Lord Brangbolton. "You just bet a quid or whatever it may be that you can cut a higher card than the other fellow, and if you do, you win, and if you don't, you don't." Adrian said it sounded like a little like blind hooky. "It is like blind hooky," said Lord Brangbolton. "Very like blind hooky. In fact, if you can play blind hooky, you can play Persian monarchs." By the time they alighted at Westbing Parva, Adrian was 20 pounds on the wrong side of the ledger. The fact, however, did not prey upon his mind. On the contrary, he was well satisfied with the progress of events. Elated with his winnings, the old Earl had become positively cordial, and Adrian resolved to press his advantage home at the earliest opportunity. Arriving at Westbing Hall, accordingly, he did not delay. Shortly after the sounding of the dressing gong, he made his way to Lord Brangbolton's room and found him in his bath. "Might I have a word with you, Lord Brangbolton?" he said. You can do more than that, replied the other with marked amiability. You can help me find the soap. Have you lost the soap? Yes, had it a minute ago and now it's gone. Strange, said Adrian. Very strange, agreed Lord Brangbolton. Makes a fellow think a bit, that sort of thing happening. My own soap, too. Brought it with me. Adrian considered. Tell me exactly what occurred, he said, in your own words, and tell me everything, please, for one never knows when the smallest detail may not be important. His companion marshaled his thoughts. My name, he began, is Reginald Alexander Montacute James Bramfield Tregennis Shipton Bellinger, 5th Earl of Brangbolton. On the 16th of the present month, today in fact, I journeyed to the house of my friend Sir Sutton Hartley Wesping Bart, here in short with the purpose of spending the weekend here. Knowing that Sir Sutton likes to have his guests sweet and fresh about the place, I decided to take a bath before dinner. I unpacked my soap, and in a short space of time had lathered myself thoroughly from the neck upwards. And then, just as I was about to get at my right leg, what should I find but that the soap had disappeared? Nasty shock it gave me, I can tell you. Adrian listened to this narrative with the closest attention. Certainly the problem appeared to present several points of interest. It looks like an inside job, he said thoughtfully. It could scarcely be the work of a gang. You would have noticed a gang. Just give me the facts briefly once more, if you please. Well, I was here in the bath, as it might be, and the soap was here, between my hands, as it were. Next moment, it was gone. Are you sure you have omitted nothing? Lord Brangbolton reflected. Well, I was singing, of course. A tense look came into Adrien's face. Singing what? Sonny boy. Ha ha! Adrien's face cleared. As I suspected, he said with satisfaction. Precisely as I had supposed. I wonder if you are aware, Lord Brangbolton, that in the singing of that particular song, the muscles unconsciously contract as you come to the final boy? Thus, I still have you, Sonny boy. You observe? It would be impossible for anyone rendering the number with the proper gusto not to force his hands together at this point, assuming that they were in anything like close juxtaposition, and if there were any slippery object between them, such as a piece of soap, it would inevitably shoot sharply upwards and fall, he scanned the room keenly, outside the bath on the mat. As indeed, he concluded, picking up the missing object and restoring it to its proprietor, it did. Lord Brangbolton gasped. Well, dang my buttons, he cried, if that isn't the smartest bit of work I've seen in a month of Sundays. Elementary, said Adrian with a shrug. You ought to be a detective. Adrian took the cue. I am a detective, he said. My name is Mulliner. For an instant, the words did not appear to have made any impression. The aged peer continued to beam through the soap suds. Then suddenly his geniality vanished with the ominous swiftness. Mulliner? Did you say Mulliner? I did. You aren't by any chance the feller who loves your daughter Millicent with a fervor he cannot begin to express? Yes, Lord Brangbolton, I am, and I am hoping that I may receive your consent to the match. A hideous scowl had darkened the Earl's brow. His fingers, which were grasping a loofah, tightened convulsively. Oh, he said, you are you? You imagine, do you, that I propose to welcome a blighted footprint and cigar ash inspector into my family? It is your idea, is it, that I shall acquiesce in the union of my daughter to a dashed fellow who goes about the place on his hands and knees with a magnifying glass, picking up small objects and putting them carefully away in his pocketbook? I seem to see myself. Why, rather than permit Millicent to marry a bally detective. What is your objection to detectives? Never you mind, that's my objection, what my objection to detectives are. Marry my daughter, indeed. I like your infernal cheek. Why, you couldn't keep her in lipsticks. Adrian preserved his dignity. I admit that my services are not so amply remunerated as I could wish, but the firm hint at a rise next Christmas. "Pshaw!" said Lord Brangbolton. "Pshaw! If you are interested in my daughter's matrimonial arrangements, she is going, as soon as he gets through with this Brahma Yama gold mines flotation of his, to marry my old friend Jasper Addleton. As for you, Mr. Mulliner, I have only two words to say to you. One is pop, and the other is off. And do it now." Adrian sighed. He saw that it would be hopeless to endeavor to argue with the haughty old man in his present mood. "So be it, Lord Branglebolton," he said quietly, and affecting not to notice the nail brush which struck him smartly on the back of his head, he left the room. Well, what is going to happen here? What skullduggery are we going to find next? We had the missing soap, the lost dog. My goodness, things are really full of mystery there. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did, and we will be finishing this one tomorrow because it has to be finished before, this is the right way, before the end of March. Thank you very much for joining me. Bye.